Hello, everybody. Wild Man Z here with another bodybuilding book review. Classic. 1990, I consider it a classic. Arnold Schwarzenegger, A Portrait. This is by George Butler. You might recall the name. George Butler and Charles Gaines made Pumping Iron. Charles Gaines was more of a writer, and Butler was more of a photographer. They also made the book Pumping Iron as well. So these guys are part of the history of bodybuilding, classic bodybuilding, if you will. If you're a young guy watching it, you should definitely watch the original Pumping Iron movie. I don't care if you started working out last year. It's a very inspiring movie, and you'll kind of get the ethos of when people say classic bodybuilding, not only what the physiques looked like, but the things that people did back in the day. And I'm older. I'm pushing 60, and I started working out in the early mid-80s, depending on what you consider really working out. I was doing push-ups and all that from about 12, 13, but definitely started lifting weights a little bit around 15-ish, then more so at 16, and gifted enough, lucky enough to see Lee Haney win the first Olympia, lucky enough to work out in gyms like Diamond in New Jersey, around guys like Johnny Morant and Chuck Williams. These are big-name bodybuilders from the 80s. John Kemper was there, another big-name bodybuilder from that time period, mostly amateur, but really top-notch physiques. And so you see, it doesn't rub off. I never had a top-notch physique, but really inspired me in terms of training hard. And it wasn't like these days. It wasn't hop right on drugs. It was more like, I remember I talking to Chuck Williams one time, who was a Mr. Universe winner, was in the Olympia, and I asked him, the first question wasn't about steroids. It was like, what do you eat? And he told me about how many pounds of fish he ate a day. It was kind of cool. I couldn't afford it. It was like Orange Ruffy. But anyway, this is a great picture book. A lot of classic photos of Arnold, both in shape and just hanging out relaxed. Arnold was really cool because, unlike some of the guys today who only take pictures of themselves when they're in contest shape, Arnold wasn't so egotistical in that, or at least in that sense. He took a lot of pictures in the gym. Here's Arnold squatting. Probably the hardest exercise, I would say, is of the bodybuilding type exercise, just squatting, putting that weight on your back or in front. I do front squats till to this day. Back squats hurt my back a lot, but they're hard motions. It's just the strenuous on your wind, and just the pain in your glutes and lower back and your quads all at one time. It's just a lot of stress. Here's a great picture of showing you what Arnold's all about. Having big arms, good overall flow. It's not the legs and all that are not fantastic. The abs aren't fantastic, but just the overall image, those big arms, the good chest, wide back. It's just an overwhelming look. And here's Arnold backstage. Get a little closer. The guy with the mustache next to him is Joe Weider. Joe Weider really ran the muscle magazines like Muscle Builder, which became Muscle and Fitness. And then later on, Flex and Shape. I don't know if that one's still around. You saw Arnold training in the old days, and, some of the exercises like wrist curls, I still do them. And really, I think this is flies, or is it a pec deck? Let me take a look here. It looks like he's doing flies. We all kind of did the battery of the similar exercises. We didn't have a lot of equipment back then, but with stuff we did have, we certainly used the heck out of. I used to like in the old days, you'll see a lot of benches in here where the uprights are relatively close together. And these days they're always wide. And what you used to do is be able to pinion your body in there a little bit and press on it and kind of leverage yourself. Here's an exercise you'll rarely see. I used to do this exercise with my friend Scott Mercereau. He played for the New York Jets. He's a big 300-pounder. These are called donkey calf raises. And it puts a lot of force directly on the calf and gets you kind of in a pre-stretched position, and it really has a unique burn. If I go to a gym, and I've been in one or two that have that machine, because I'm not going to ask anybody at this age and this time period to sit on my back, but when we were younger and we were really into it, everybody was doing that exercise. Yeah, we did it, and it really worked good for the calves. But if they have a machine for that in a gym you train at, try it. They make a machine out, a pad goes on your back. And I used to in the old days have a way of rigging up the Smith machine to do it. I would not do it in a commercial gym. I kind of worked this gym and I had people help me, because even then it was kind of awkward if my buddies weren't there to ask some strange dude to sit under my back and my chest. Here's an exercise they discourage these days, the behind the neck press. It's not an exercise you used to have to use 1,000,000 pounds with. You can, if you're doing front presses with 200 pounds, you can do behind neck presses with 100. But it's a good shoulder builder. I don't know. People say it's going to hurt your shoulders. I think it's if you do bad form and if you have arthritis or something, you're older. But if you're a 20-year-old guy, try it. I mean, it's a good exercise. Don't listen to all these exercise physiology guys. Look at how half of them look. They got this one guy on the internet. I think his name's Dr. Mike. Here's Joe Weider hanging out with Arnold, chilling out. Dr. Mike is this guy who's always telling you don't do this, don't do that, and eat this and don't eat that. It's always very contradictory to like classically what bodybuilders did. And I'm not dissing the guy. He just doesn't look good at all, this guy. And he works out. He even says he takes steroids. I'm like, who would listen to this guy? I know he has a doctorate, but it's not from a particularly good school. And I'm sitting there like, he's probably an all right guy, but like I wouldn't base my workouts on what this guy says. I mean, like some of it's okay, but a lot of it, like he'll put down these exercises that are great. Here's a cool picture. That's Arnold hanging out with a couple girls. The guy hanging upside down is his Italian training partner, Franco Colombo. He died a few years ago. Franco, as Arnold said in his eulogy, had what he referred to as subhuman strength. He really meant superhuman, I think, but he also could have meant subhuman in a sense like a primate, like a chimp or a gorilla or an orangutan. I mean, these animals are incredibly strong. They would dismember you with their bare hands. They can hang with a finger off a tree and eat a banana. I mean, they can do some incredible feats of strength. And that's how Franco was in a stent, because he could hang upside down just using his feet without any hooks or anything and do sit-ups like that. I don't know how the hell you do that. It's I can't show you this picture. It's on with a topless girl on his back. Arnold developed these poses that we call them like three-quarter back shots. It's a variant of it. I'm sure they have a different name for some of the variants, but that's a basic idea of a three-quarter back shot. You can also do it with more of a tilt and all that, but that type of a twisting back pose, one arm up or two arm ups, he developed because he had a little thickness with the waist. And back in the day, unlike these days where thicker waist and guts and all that, they're different things, but they're both not ideal. You want to have a small waist with sculpted abs where you can vacuum it in if you want to. It's just dramatic looking. It's not the thing anymore in open bodybuilding. I mean, I saw Nick Walker win the other day, and I'm like, man, I'm in my almost 60 years old. I wouldn't want this guy's waistline. I'm like, geez, it looks terrible. And he's Mr. Olympia contender, and he's like winning shows. But back in the day, if you didn't have a teeny waist, you certainly tried to pose in such a way to make it look smaller than it is. And here he's doing just that. He's not doing a front-on ab shot. He's showing you kind of his serratus and intercostals and obliques a little bit. And you didn't overdevelop your obliques, just wanted a little bit there to try to emphasize the flow. And the lats, these are the lats here, got great insertion. See, that's the insertion point is down there. We all originate up there, but his insertion is down by his hip. Mine's up here somewhere. He's got what you want, and you can't do anything about that. That's genetic. You certainly can emphasize that, but that whole flow there looks good, and it's not playing on the fact that he's got a wide waist. He's playing on the fact that he's got great lats, and he's developed his serratus and intercostals to a good extent where he can really have a good flow and physique. These guys today do not know how to show their physiques at all, with a few exceptions. These guys would show their strong points, and they would conceal or marginalize their weak points, including in transitioning between poses. And these guys don't today. They'll turn and their gut flaps out. You're like, ooh, look at the gut. And it's like, even the kids online will be like, look at the gut. But they reward them with trophies. It's really, I wish they'd have a change in ethics of bodybuilding. This picture would not fly well today. I guess this was probably, he went to South Africa. I'm assuming it's taken there. But a Germanic or any white guy standing there with a bunch of black kids holding on his leg, it's a bad look. Even back then, I was kind of like, I wouldn't take that photo. Here he's showing off his calves. Now, there's always been controversy if Arnold had calf implants. And you know what? I'm going to say no, because I'm a little shorter than Arnold, but I have relatively long legs. Really good. I always had really good quads and hamstrings. But had like regular calves. They were kind of high, not high, but they weren't beautiful, long, deep calves like, some people, including overweight people, have beautiful calves. You're like, wow. Or women that don't even work out. They just walk around. Beautiful calves. I didn't have that. But I worked the hell out of them, and that means like doing them damn near every workout. I didn't do a lot of sets, maybe 6-8 sets. I can't do that much anymore. I do them like every other workout now. But I did that for years. Heavyweight or relatively heavyweight with super high reps, or changing foot position and changing up the exercises or supersetting them or, doing different things, like shocking my calves constantly. And people say, oh, you can't do that. Yeah, well, they grow. But Arnold, I think he did the same thing. They said that even in the off season when he didn't train a lot, he still trained his calves, because back in the day, it wasn't so much about having huge thighs. You had to have good thighs with good shape, but you couldn't have gimpy calves. They would go right at that. And you couldn't have gimpy forearms. You had to have forearms that matched your upper arms. So you would see guys doing a lot of wrist curls, a lot of ab work, of course, having good abs was in it, but also a lot of calf work. These guys today do like a lot of glute and hamstring work, which is nothing wrong with doing it, but like they kind of overemphasize that relative to their calves and other body parts that are, to me, more aesthetic. Here's Arnold just hanging out in the offseason, looking pretty much like an athletically built man of his age. You would never guess this guy was Mr. Olympia by looking at that physique in the offseason. I think that's cool that he shows himself in different ways, because you realize he's going, at first place, he's going off steroids. And that's an important thing, is that you have time off from taking these harmful drugs. And they realized that in the old days. I've experimented with steroids, and guys would always emphasize to you, be off more than you're on. Be off more than you're on. And when you're off, train a little less, but train heavier. Try to train almost like a power bodybuilding thing. Like, do heavy benching, do heavy squatting, do deadlifts, do bent over rows, do pull-ups, do basic exercises real hard. And then, for whatever you can recover from, let's say 4 days a week. Then if you're getting ready for a contest, or or if you're on cycle, then you could train 5 or 6 days a week. Some guys would even train twice a day sometimes. But we didn't do too much cardio. I always did a little bit, but it was a different training philosophy. These days it's just running drugs all the time. And I realize guys download the drugs, or what they call it, a cruise and a blast. Sometimes, unless you're needing TRT because you're an old person, like over 40 or 50, going off is important when you're younger. If you want to ever recuperate your function, and you also want to be able to have kids in the future and not be dependent on drugs for, taking needles since your time you're 20 for the rest of your life. Here he's looking like a normal athletic dude in the off season. It's like wow, it's a good physique. There's nothing wrong with that, but like good arms, definitely a chest going, but legs and the abs and all that, just normal athletic build. But he didn't care. But when he was on, he was fantastic. And a lot of confidence in himself. Most guys would not be confident enough to show themselves like this. Arnold was the master of trickery. So when they would have like a side tricep shot, he would always throw that shot in there for it. Typically, if they let him get away with it, I call it a mantis pose. Now, he is showing his tricep, but he's also really emphasizing the bicep in that pose, right? And it's the chest and to an extent the forearms. So it's taken away from his deficiency, which relative to the other parts of his arm, particularly his bicep, his triceps were lacking for him, not for the average guy. And the chest, of course, is always one of the best still. But, he would manipulate even the mandatory poses. And if you're not too familiar with bodybuilding, they always have a variety of mandatory poses, and the side tricep is one of them that they've always had. But he would always twist it in such a way that made his body look good, and that was smart, if you could get away with it. Here's showing his leg up close. And again, really good separation of the quads. Calves are looking good, but they're not big. They're not big. It was more, huge legs didn't really become a thing until Tom Platz. And then even then, it was like Tom Platz, Tim Belknap, a couple other guys had really huge legs, but it was more about shape. Your legs were like, you're kind of like a statue. They were holding you up. They had to have good shape. The calves had to be good. But in terms of having gigantic quads, huge hamstrings, and a big ass, that was definitely, at least for men's bodybuilding, not a thing. These guys today, their butts are like ginormous and striated. They're very muscular, but it's kind of a wonky look. I don't get the beauty of it, but it's not, to them it's no longer a beauty contest. It's more of just get as big as you can to be somewhat ripped. You see Arnold doing these exercises. You always went to the gym and you wanted to try them. Shrugs. Here's he's doing reverse curls on a preacher bench. That's really good for the forearms. I don't see many people doing that these days, using easy curl bar for that. Really works the brachialis, the brachioradialis, all the different muscles of the forearm, but also the bicep to an extent. It's good if you're transitioning from bicep workout. Maybe you're doing regular preacher curls. It's the second, third exercise. Then you want to transition to forearms, do 1-2 exercises. Throw that one in there. Try it. It's really good. You can also hammer curl on a preacher curl, and that's really good for the connection between the forearms and the bicep. But back in the day, having good, strong forearms forearms was important. This definitely looks like the 1980 Mr. Olympia, where, Arnold's always got an impressive physique when he's in the show, but compared to earlier years, he was definitely down in his contest, and he probably weighed 15, 20 pounds less than normal. Legs were thin. The biceps were fantastic as usual. Chest was good. Abs, they were so-so. The back was kind of, it was like all right. But, he was not competing against average guys in the gym. He had a lineup up there that was a really good lineup, and you'll see some of these guys up there right now. And, of course, this is Arnold's books that are showing him throwing a pose over here, and they're kind of not emphasizing the other guys. But when I watched the video for that, this was before the time of me training. I certainly wasn't going to go to wherever this was held and watch it. Here he's standing here on a show, and you can just see he's not that big, for an Olympia competitor. I don't think I would have had him in the top 5. I think at that show, I can't say who would have won. I'm not a Mike Menserite. I mean, I like Mike's physique, but I mean, he was not a definitive winner in my opinion. There was no really definitive winner. It could have been Chris Dickerson. It could have been Boyer Coe. It could have been Mike. Those would be the 3 guys I would say were contesting, and I have Zane up there somewhere, and I would definitely have Dickerson. If Dickerson won, I would have been great. If Boyer won, it would have been great. Mentor won, it would have been great. Zane, I wouldn't have had him win. Zane was a little flat and thin. He's already a light guy. He probably was down about 10 pounds, and he was just off. He injured himself. Arnold would have been behind all those guys. Even some of the guys who were in it, like Roger Walker from Australia, I would have put over Arnold because he was just bigger and more ripped and like conditioned and grainy. Incredible chest. It didn't have the flow Arnold did, but Arnold's flow was thrown off because you can't have flow if you got skinny legs. It's like, he needs to have those cuts and those lines. Here's some cool guys. There's Arnold, of course. This guy over here is Leon Brown. I've met this guy a few times. He was from the city, New York City. If not every city is New York. But he was a smaller bodybuilder, but really good. He had a great, they called him the Brown Bomber. Really good physique. I mean, just a quality body. I don't think he was all natural. I remember my friend Charlie actually was friends with the guy. I think they bounced or something together in a city, maybe at Cheetah, one of those clubs. But my friend Charlie knew a lot of these guys like him and Harold Poole and John Brown and guys like that he knew from, I don't know, just the city or whatever. He was an older guy. He was also black. And he knew these guys, and he would say that he did a little bit. He did a little bit for a contest. So, it was really good physique. That guy beat Franco Colombo in a show, and I think Franco never lived it down. But at any rate, this is a fun book. If you're into bodybuilding, definitely check it out. It's, you have to be older and like bodybuilding. If you're a younger guy and you want to get like a little feel of classic bodybuilding besides watching classic bodybuilding, the modern division, which is fantastic, watch the documentary Pumping Iron. It's actually on YouTube for free right now. I'm giving a promo or something like that. Don't bother with the book. Watch the documentary. It's funner. It's a docudrama. It's definitely some of it's staged, but you'll get the feel of how guys were. It was about hanging out, working out hard with your friends, getting a meal afterwards, usually some high protein, a little bit of carbs maybe in there. You typically you go out and have some chicken or steak and maybe some potatoes or something, and with your boys, and you're laughing. And then, I was in New York, but, for these guys, they go to the beach afterwards, and they usually, if they were training for a show, they usually trained later in the day. They'd come back, maybe they do chest in the morning, do back at night with some abs, and didn't do a lot of cardio. They didn't do that much. They didn't run around a little bit, but it was definitely like a lifestyle. And, I was on the East Coast and I wasn't a big time bodybuilder, but you try to emulate aspects of it. You definitely had the camaraderie, and you had the exercise selection and the crude gyms and the basic dietary plan without a lot of science. So, at any rate, fun book. Hope you enjoyed the video. Wild Man Z out. Take care.